Welcome to Quack&Co, the board game channel where every video is 10 minutes or less guaranteed, and today is Monday Musings. And I have one very simple question for you all, something that I've been trying to analyze and ask myself over the course of the last few months, and honestly, the duration of this channel. How do you go about finding and trusting recommendations for new board games? It's a hard question. It's something that I have tried and failed again, time and time again. I mean, it's easy in some ways to say, like, oh, I just watched the new hotness and see if a game looks like it's going to be right for me, or I listen to X content creator. But what I've discovered over the years is that just because someone makes a video talking about all the acclaim that some product has, doesn't mean that it'll be something I like. Just because something pops up onto the BGG hotness list, again, doesn't mean that they're actually making something that I personally would enjoy. That's where things start to get a little bit complicated, a little bit messy, because at the heart of things, I want to play all the new popular games. I want to explore the world of board gaming. I mean, I made this channel so that we could play games as often as possible, create content, and build a community that allowed us to, well, be in this hobby space. But the hard part comes when you're trying to find good recommendations. There's a few ways that I know I've found games in the past. One of which has been watching other content creators, right? Listening to them. When I first got into the hobby space and I found some interesting board games, I started relying on the content creator community as the bedrock for everything that I discovered, everything that I played, everything that I bought, starting, of course, with the classic Shut Up and Sit Down. Probably some of the most famous content creators in our space, some of the most successful, and some of the most beloved. And I have to be honest, I didn't find that I matched very well with their recommendations. I bought a lot of games that first 6 months to 12 months in this hobby space off the back of recommendations from content creators that didn't turn out to be a good litmus test for me. I've seen some people comment this on my videos, being like, oh, well, if you like this game, I know for a fact I won't. It's a very aggressive box fart there. I've seen people comment, like, if Quackalope likes this game, I know for a fact that I won't. Or, if Quackalope's talking about this, then he's been a reliable source in the past. It's a hard compromise to make. It's an important thing to understand, though, because content creators, just like other people in your game groups and other people throughout this entire hobby space, will have their own preferences. Do you rely on sites like the Dice Tower that cover every single game? I have an alarm going off. Oh, thank you so much, phone. That's my 9:45 p.m. alarm reminding me that I need to go ahead and make it to evening prayers, so we'll leave after this video to do that. What I was asking, though, is, do you listen to a site like Dice Tower that covers every single game basically ever made throughout the course of board game history, but has things like the Foursquare reviews where you can trust one reviewer over another and hear a wide mix of opinions, since everyone is going to come in with their own flavor and their own taste? At the end of the day, board games is a subjective art form, and so determining where you find and what media you listen to can be really difficult. So, the first way that I thought of was content creators. Finding people that you relate with, making some mistakes along the way like I have, and finding some people that you don't relate with, because you can then discern what games are going to be falling within your sector as you watch and consume media. Do you do a lot of research? That's the other option that I have. Watching gameplay videos, reading updates, seeing the story and the development of the game, reading the rulebook before you even hit that purchase button off of the publisher's website. This is another really compelling way to approach the board game hobby, where you're focused so solely on the mechanics and the framework of the game, the experience of the gameplay, that you can really see and envision yourself sitting around a table and playing something that you've only read about or you've only witnessed. This is a way that doesn't really work for me very well. I don't know if I like something until I'm there in front of it, but I know a lot of people that get really upset if a Kickstarter page does not have a rulebook available, because they want to make sure that the game's right for them by discerning and reading through the mechanics of the game. My wife Shira is like that in some ways. She cares about the mechanics over, I think, everything else. The third way I thought of is through gaming groups, through recommendations. There's a lot of games that I've found only because the people that I was playing with happened to enjoy them. And then there was a weird dichotomy. Like, the game that you loved playing with them, Twilight Imperium, would be a great example of this. Yeah, it's an amazing game. I mean, a mind-blowing masterpiece of a game, but it is wrong for almost every other game group except the one you're in. So, do you go out and buy it yourself? Do you pick it up and read the rulebook and learn the mechanics, and then find that you can't host game nights with it because you've moved or your game group already has someone with a copy? What's that like for you? Where do you find your game recommendations? Who do you trust as a reliable source to either steer you away from games or steer you towards them? Is it the friends that you have around you, the game groups that you play with, the rule books and gameplay videos you see and watch online as you get absorbed in a community? Or is it content creators? Another option could be consistent publishers. Are you one of those that's a loyalist to like Stonemaier Games, for instance? I don't care what they're coming out with. I'm buying every single thing they put out because I want to see, I want to experience. I know there's people that are like that for Leader Games, for instance, for Orange Nebula, for Ivy Studios. There's some big publishers there that you really couldn't be that way with. Lucky Duck, Awaken Realms. I mean, they just put out so many products, it's hard to make sure you have your hands on every single one that they produce. But being a loyalist, I think, makes sense in some ways. If they make something you already enjoy, the likelihood is they might make another thing that you might enjoy. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. It's an interesting thing to dissect and diagnose. Like, where through this hobby do we discover the stuff that we fall the most in love with? My favorite game of all time, Bus, is a game that I purchased not knowing anything about it. But there was a 10th anniversary edition of it coming out, or a 20th anniversary edition of it coming out, and it's a Splotter game. I already knew I liked Splotter games. I wanted the deluxified copy and components, and it was a hard-to-get game at the time. So I pre-ordered it. Not only that, I pre-ordered a few copies of it. And it turns out I adore it. But I didn't know that before diving in. Other games, like, I'm completely blanking on Age of Steam, a game that we play often with one specific game group. Or we have Galaxy Empires. I think that's the right name for it. A game that I've played with one person in my past. But they're not games that are right for the vast majority of game groups or people, and yet I still own both of them, and I wish I could get them to the table more. I've got a lot of games that I love because the artwork, the theme, and the publisher all kind of aligned, and I'm a storyteller at heart, and so I love games that promise me a cool narrative, but in those situations, I've barely tabled most of them. So those were probably the wrong decisions. And then, yeah, I've got a variety of games that I followed the advice of others on, content creators specifically, and it turned out their taste didn't really match up with mine. Or in some unique cases, like a recent game from No Pun Included, I loved the game that they recommended, and I thought I would based off their review, and it turns out I was right. Over the last 6-7 years that I've been in the hobby space, and 5 years that I've ran these channels, I think my taste has got a little bit more discerning, but also a little bit broader, a little bit wider. I've been introduced to more games and more game mechanics that I tended to enjoy, which means that some of those games I didn't like in the past might be ones that I would like in the future. It's hard. There's too many games, there's too little time to learn, play, and table them all. So, I guess I'm still asking the question, how do you figure out what it is you're going to spend your week, weekend, or your one game night a month playing? And what you're going to buy? I got too many games. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Remember, less time watching means more time playing, and I'll see you tomorrow.